So what does buying and selling on term really means, and how is it different from the traditional investing or wholesaling?
Yeah, okay, so a little context here. I've been at this 34 years and I didn't know what I do now up until the crash, which was 17 years in. Okay, so if people don't know about it, it's okay. It has
Hmm.
been around before banking and it's called creative real estate. That when
Hmm.
I came out of the crash, I had no credit and I had no cash. So if I was going to operate, I had to operate creatively. And so for us, buying on terms means three things. Buying owner financing, where you pay payments to the seller instead of taking out a bank loan. That's one, owner financing. Two is lease purchase, where you don't actually buy the property, but you control the property through a lease purchase. And third is buying the property subject to the existing mortgage, meaning we buy a property, the mortgage stays in the seller's name, but we own the property. So we never have to sign on bank loans.
What if you could build real estate wealth without banks, without begging for private money, and without getting crushed by the interest rates? What if, no matter what the market is doing, you had a playbook to buy and sell on your own terms? Welcome back to the Wealth Vibe Show, where we tune into frequency of wealth creation, protection, and expansion. I'm your host, Vinky Loomba, and today we are talking about a smarter, safer, and more strategic way to build wealth through real estate that most investors still do not fully understand. And is calling buying and selling on terms. And today's guest is someone who has mastered this strategy and teaches others how to do the same. Chris Prefontaine is the founder and chairman of Smart Real Estate Coach, a 4X best-selling author and the leader of the Wicked Smart community, helping investors across the North America to close creative real estate deals without using their own cash or credit. So he has been through 9/11, 2008 crash, COVID, and personal crisis, and rebuilt every time. He knows how to build and protect wealth, no matter which way the market moves. So, Chris, welcome to the Wealth Vibe Show. I have been looking forward to hearing your wealth building strategies all along.
Same here. Pleasure to be here, Vinky. I can't wait to chat.
Awesome. So our topic for today is buying and selling on terms, how to build wealth in any market without going broke or burnt out. So let's start with your story. You have rebuilt your business through every major economic downturn. What mindset shift allowed you to not only survive, but thrive through all of this?
From a mindset standpoint, it's what actually stopped me after the 2008 crash for 4 years. 4 years. It was a mindset issue. I was just in my head. And so once I was able to get out of that, and what helped me get out of that, outside influences, immersing myself with people that have already been through what I went through, who could look at that and say, here's where to go next. It was a big eye opener when I realized that time and one other time in the 90s, I didn't have a coach, and it was the only two times in my life that I had a little bit of a speed bump. So the mindset really was getting back out of my own head and realize that I can do it if I follow the right people. That was post 2008. That's what happened basically. For 4 years, I was in my own way mentally.
Mhm. So I'm going to ask you this question, like I read in your bio as well, buying and selling on terms. For those who are unfamiliar with this, so what does buying and selling on term really means, and how is it different from the traditional investing or wholesaling?
Yeah, okay, so a little context here. I've been at this 34 years and I didn't know what I do now up until the crash, which was 17 years in. Okay, so if people don't know about it, it's okay. It has
Mhm.
been around before banking and it's called creative real estate. That when
Mhm.
I came out of the crash, I had no credit and I had no cash. So if I was going to operate, I had to operate creatively. And so for us, buying on terms means three things. Buying owner financing, where you pay payments to the seller instead of taking out a bank loan. That's one, owner financing. Two is lease purchase, where you don't actually buy the property, but you control the property through a lease purchase. And third is buying the property subject to the existing mortgage, meaning we buy a property, the mortgage stays in the seller's name, but we own the property. So we never have to sign on bank loans. Remember, coming out of the crash, I couldn't sign on a bank loan because I wasn't bankable, no credit, no cash. So those three ways were devised to help me get back in business. And then it just caught on organically that other people wanted to learn it.
So let's start with number three. How does that work? The pre-existing mortgage, how can you take that over?
Yeah, so this is interesting because you have a lot of rates, as you know, that were in the twos, threes, fours, and fives that we're still seeing in the community. We're seeing these properties come up every week. So typically that avatar, that seller, lends itself to usually somebody that needs financial relief. Some of the other categories are different, but if they're going to sell you their house and stay on the loan, they sort of want financial relief right away. So let me give you an example, okay, how it works and give you a real live deal. We had a couple that got divorced. They were not amicable. They had a 4.2% interest rate on an existing loan, and they just wanted out. In fact, they had slipped two payments behind. Luckily, they called us in time, and we were able to buy their property, transfer it to our entity, and the
Mhm.
loan, they stayed on the loan as guarantors. The loan just stays in place. We're making the payments on their behalf because we now own the property, but it stayed in place. Notice I didn't say assume, because assume alone means I have to apply and I have to be the person signing personally. No, we didn't. We just bought the property. The loan stayed in their name. That deal has since cashed out, but that relieved them of payments that were slipping, and that essentially indirectly fixed their credit then, right? Because we started paying the payments. And we ended
Right.
up cashing that deal out not too long ago, about a month ago, actually. That was a 6 or 7 year deal.
Interesting, but how do you ensure that deal is your because you're making the payments, right? But loan is on somebody else's name. You're fixing their credit, but what is there for you, right? I mean, how do you
How do we
ensure
ensure
that
what? Sorry? How do we ensure?
how do you ensure that that particular property is yours, even though it's
Ah,
not your name?
yeah, got it. So now I'm not an attorney, but from a legal standpoint, that property, just like it would at a conventional closing, does get transferred to our entity or trust. So we own it. Yep.
Okay.
The lien for the loan stays on it, and they stay as guarantors of the loan, but we own the property.
So you have a lien on the property while you're making the payments and eventually it gets transferred over to you. Is that
Uh,
correct statement?
yes and no. So the property, let's do it this way. Say today you go and buy a home. Anyone who's
Okay.
bought a home for a listener, they'll remember that on the settlement statement, there was one line that showed where their loan was coming into play, their cash, right? So on the
Mm-hmm.
settlement statement, it showed new money coming to the table, Bank of
Mm-hmm.
America or whatever. When we buy a property, that line stays there, but what it says is subject to existing loan with a balance of X. And that balance is like there was new money there, but there's no new money. We're just going to keep paying on that underlying loan, but we own the property. So that lien for that loan with that mortgage company stays on the property, and we now own
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So can someone really build wealth using these terms without relying on bank or hard money lenders?
it. Yeah, so here's the difference for me. My first 17 years leading up to the crash, I was what you and I would know as a solopreneur. Just doing deals,
Mm-hmm.
very transactional. I do a deal, I get a check. I do a deal, I get a check. What we
Mm-hmm.
devised with the way we buy here is, and we federally trademarked it, is the three payday system. So picture if you go do a deal, you're a flipper or a rehabber, you get a check, you got to go do it again, right? With our
Exactly.
deals, it's just transactional. It's like a job, unfortunately. It took me a long time to figure that one out. So now when we do a deal, we create cash now, just like a transactional deal would, but then we launch a monthly cash flow and a long-term cash flow when we end up cashing out. So that's cash now, cash monthly, and cash down the road. That's called the three payday system. And again, we trademarked that because I was tired of, there were some rules I set up after the crash. One was no personally signing, but one was no more transactional being on a treadmill. So every January, I got to go out and do the same thing all over again. I wanted to create cash flow and wealth at the same time, and the three payday system does that.
Interesting. And how do you getting your deal flow?
We get them some of it conventional, meaning a lot of investors use things like for sale by owners, for rent
Mm-hmm.
by owners, expired
Mm-hmm.
listings that aren't selling on the open market, and realtors referring us those because they want to try to, help their seller and they couldn't sell it. That's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty conventional way of gathering the leads. If we need more, we go to niche lists. Like I love, for example, free and clear properties, mortgage free. And I sometimes couple free and clear with out of state owners. So you're someone that
Mm-hmm.
lives out of state. I get your information and I know you have no mortgage in your property. And I know you'll
Uh-huh.
probably be open to doing owner financing because you don't have a bank involved. And I love those
Mm-hmm.
deals.
That's good. So now you figure out your system, you put your processes in place, and you started teaching others, right?
Yeah,
Doing
I live on an island in Newport, Rhode Island, and there's a war college. The Navy has a training facility here. There was a
uh-huh.
gentleman who had done 3 tours to Iraq, and he's a young gentleman in his late 20s. And he heard about me way back in like 12 or 13. And he said, "Would you teach me what you do?" And I said, "Sure." And I had coached other people before, but not in the investment world. So I started coaching him, doing some deals together, and then organically it started growing to the point of hitting Inc. 5,000 3 years in a row for fastest growing companies. And all we were doing is doing our own deals at one time. And so to this day, we still do our own deals, but we also coach around the country and in Canada. We're in about 80 markets, Finky. When I say 80 markets, that's people like you and me that we teach, that we revenue share on deals with. So they're teaching and doing as they go.
Interesting. So you are in 80 markets and you have worked with thousands of students. What is the biggest myth they come in with that they guess when they get started early on?
Um, I've been saying this for years. It's definitely mismanaged expectations because more so than ever, especially on social media, these companies, these education companies are barraging us with get rich quick tomorrow type ads. And
Right.
so people come in with this expectation that I got to do it quickly. Well, and then if it doesn't happen, they blame themselves. And then they quit and they go try another niche and another niche. And it's like drilling wells and never hitting water. They're wasting time. So mismanaging expectations can hurt you. If you're listening out there and you're trying to find something, my 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 urge to everyone is to make sure you give it 3 years. Well, and I have a simple 3 steps I'll give you. Find a niche you like. If real estate's it for you, there's a lot of great niches. Find one you like. Two, find someone who's been in that niche that is where you want to be. I mean, morally, ethically, success-wise, just there's someone you can get
Uh-huh.
behind. And then third, put your blinders on for 3 years. You'll have a great experience versus jumping all around to these different ideas to try to make it work tomorrow.
Oh my God, I love that. Put your blinders on because focusing all your energy on one product versus, all scattered, that makes a huge
Yeah.
difference. So, can you walk us through your one typical deal from conception to completion? How does that work basically? And
One of
you
the
said
deals.
3 years. Yeah, so I assume that your exit strategy is like 3 to 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, it can be anywhere from 1 to technically 20, but the average is like 3 to 5. So let's
Three to
talk
five.
about, let's talk about that deal I mentioned. Let's continue that deal. So we
Exactly.
purchased that property from that couple who were thankful because they were getting divorced and letting the house go. And as you know, a foreclosure can haunt you for 7 years on your credit. So, okay,
Mhm.
so we buy the property. We make up $4,100 in arrears. They were behind. Where do we get that money? Was it in our pocket? No.
No.
How we
How
exit
we
properties
properties.
is we put a rent-to-own buyer in there who needs time to get financing. They're a true
Uh-huh.
buyer. They deserve to get in a home. They just are not bankable today. Now, who would be not bankable? People that had a credit ding from a life event it happened to me. People
Mhm.
who just switched jobs or just started their own business, that's a big one now. And so a bank won't give them a loan when they just started a brand new business. It takes 2 years of what they call seasoning. So we put people like that in the homes. Now, this particular home had an attorney who went to law school and her credit got trashed when she went through law school. Well, she needed their rent-to-own program. That's who we put in for the buyer. So we bought it from the divorce couple, put a buyer in there that legitimately had a credit ding going through law school, who then later on would cash the home out when they get mortgage ready. That's how we exit all our deals. The average 3 paydays, Pinky, just to give you a metric, the average 3 paydays on all our deals across the country run from a low of 45,000 to a high of 350,000 per deal, all 3 paydays. So where do these paydays come from to finish that deal? Payday one, the buyer comes in with a down payment. They were ready to buy, they just weren't bankable. That's yours to keep as the investor. Payday two, I'm paying on that underlying loan. Remember, I took that loan over. They're paying me something more. On that deal, the loan was like $2,118, and we were collecting $2,600 per month, roughly. There's a spread there. So that's
Mhm.
monthly. Third payday is after 5 or 6 years, in this case, sometimes it's less. All of that principal pay down on the underlying loan is ours, of course, and any markup that we did. So that deal was very lucrative because it went a little bit longer. So that's how a deal works. I know I went through it 10,000 foot view, but just so the listeners have a sense for how lucrative these deals can be.
Mhm. And then you said you work with the students and then you kind of do it cumulatively. So can you share one example of any of your deals where a student's life was changed with this strategy?
Yeah, I'll use Rick. Rick's because he's somewhat local to me. He's in New Hampshire. He worked for the government 30 years. 30 years. He tried flipping and wholesaling other niches in the business, and it just seemed like another job. And he had 180 employees at the government, so it wasn't like he could take on another job. Rick came with us and set a goal for 2 years to leave his job, and it wasn't a low-paying job. It was multiple six figures. In doing the three payday deals, after 5 deals, his average paydays were over 100,000 each house. He was able to leave his job. He's now a coach of ours. His lifestyle, his income, everything has dramatically changed. And we're doing that a lot, Binky, that we help people escape their W-2 every single year, a handful. It's really neat.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then. You said many people they leave their W-2 job or they wanted to leave their W-2 job. So what does it take, really take to escape the rat race through this real estate strategy or investing strategy, I would call it, or wealth building strategy?
Yeah, everybody's a little different, right? So they different for two respects. One, everybody has a different palette for how much they want to see in deals before they'll make that break, right?
Uh-huh.
And number two, everybody has a different salary that's going to take to replace, right? We just had a woman in Maine. This just happened within 2 months ago. She's up in the state of Maine and she left a 300 something thousand dollar job after 17 years. I think it was 17 or 23 years just recently. So did it take her a little longer than some that are trying to replace maybe a $70,000 salary? Yes. So your question is really contingent upon their palette for how much they want to have in the hopper, so to speak, deals, and how much they have to replace. Everybody's different.
Hmm.
It does take
So
commitment though to answer that, right? It can't be, yeah, I have this goal, it'd be nice. It has to be, show me the plan, Chris and the coaches, and I will commit to doing that. I will commit to you holding me accountable. Then we have a game plan that we can hit predictably.
and how many students you have right now?
There's different categories. So there's well over 1,000 that are in our academy. There are about
Uh-huh.
140 or so that we call associates that are those that are out there doing deals that revenue share with us as they learn. And that's the
Uh-huh.
80 markets that we touch right now.
Hmm. Wow, interesting. So let's talk about the power of coaching in real estate, because I know there's multiple coaches out there, but uh, why do you believe, or all these coaches maybe they might have the similar mindset? They believe that working with someone that's like a little bit more experience is better than working with like totally novice. And then I'm going to flip that coin too. Like when the students come join the program, they sometimes have the mindset like I'm getting everything on a silver platter.
Yeah.
And then when they don't get it, and they walk away with a huge disappointment. So
Yeah.
I'm going to learn the both angles from you. What exactly should someone look for a coaching program?
I think that number one, you've got to have two things in a coach or a community. You've got to have someone that has the experience, they've been through real estate markets. Why? Because they're going to keep changing. So you might as well have someone that already did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, someone that's presently doing deals. This is a big one. I was just on another show before yours, and the host brought up this major issue. And the major issue is you have some people coaching that either did just a couple deals in their life or haven't done one in 20 years. That doesn't do well because you're not current. We're doing deals every single week and every single month. So it's very important when you're aligning yourself with a coach to look for those things. On the flip side that you said, this goes along with managing expectations, what you just said, because they should not expect to come in and say, I want everything given to me, I want everything done for me, if the communication you've given them is proper, not overpromise, right? Here's the outline of what you're responsible for. Here's what we're responsible for. Here's the timeline that could take. When you set expectations like that, there should be none of that. But you're right, it exists out there because they don't set proper expectations.
I agree on that. And when you're teaching this course, you've been a coach for multiple years, and then you're teaching from your experience. Would you be able to share with us some steps that you're sharing with your students to make them successful in this? I forgot, what is the terminology that we use?
Creative real estate on your terms.
Buying and selling on
Yeah.
terms. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, skills. Okay. So we teach what's called the genius model, three prongs. It's skill set, systems, and mindset. So it's
Uh-huh.
not like it's even one or three things. Those each categories have surrounding it all kinds of categories, right? So everybody comes in with a different set of, I call it baggage. I had baggage after the crash, right? So everybody has that. It's just a matter of weeding through what do they need help on. Are they all set with the mindset and they just need skill set? Are they all set with skill set and they're a mess with systems? What is it within the genius model out of those three things do they need? So that's when we start pinpointing, not like we can say one thing across the board. What I can tell you is an acronym we use for everyone, and it's simply ACA, ACAA. It stands for this. The first A is to take action. Got to get into
Action.
action. The
Uh-huh.
C stands for critique. So whatever you do, now you stop and you critique it with your coach. And then
Uh-huh.
the next A stands for adjust. Based on that critique, you adjust your actions and then take action again. So action, critique, adjust, action. That's just an acronym that I've used for literally over 30 years that we use for it doesn't have to be real estate. Because if you do that and you do that with a coach, you can't get off track unless you disappear.
That's a really good framework, but you gotta have the right mindset to follow that frame too, because action is the key in any sphere of our life, no matter
Yeah.
where you go, right? But a lot of people, they hesitate. I have seen in my experience too, there's a lot of hesitation, lot of limiting beliefs, or a lot of imposter syndromes,
Yeah.
or you call it the childhood conditioning. They play a big role. So how do you help people overcome that? Because that's just
Yeah.
step one, mindset. Because until unless you train them to think certain way, the performance won't match.
Yeah, you hit it because we're trying to show people how to take most of them as employees and move them into entrepreneurship, and it's not an easy mindset. So we do a few things. We bring in any one of our personal coaches. We have what's called a Wicked Smart sit down every Thursday. Been doing this for
Mhm.
years and years, almost 10 now. And we bring in guest speakers, not just all us. So we bring in one of the mindset coaches. We'll bring in Dr. Amanda, who does just that. It specializes in that. So we bring
Mhm.
them and interject them into the community. We then also create courses in the mindset space. So remember the genius model, mindset, systems, and skill set. The mindset is, in my opinion, for most people, 90 something percent of it. And so we have to
Mhm.
teach that. We bring that in by speakers and programs. Yeah.
Mhm. So let's talk about your systems, Is there any framework for your systems too that you can share with us or able to share with us?
Yeah, over the years, it's evolved. You used to have to come in the community, get a website, expensive, get a CRM, somewhat groggy and slow back then, and have all these separate lead follow-up systems. Now we have one system that we've white labeled with REI Black Book. That's the name of the company. When a student comes in and gets that, they get all of our workload automation, all of the website, they get everything they need in one system. So that's over the years taken about 8 or 10 systems and put it into one kind of a business in a box, if you will. And that's what they have access to now. Wonderful compared to 8, 10 years ago.
Hmm. And the third piece was the skill sets, right?
Yeah.
So how do you help them enhance their skill
Skill set
set?
is most of it because that's the interaction, learning how to structure deals. And
Uh-huh.
then on YouTube, we post, Vinky, I think it's over 500 now. Every Sunday since 2017 or 18, we post a deal structure Sunday, we call it. So they can go on there and look at a whiteboard deal layout, and then they can go into our academy and do the same exact thing. And then as they're doing their own deals, they got the confidence now they're doing their own. They have a coach working with them, structuring that and improving their skill sets. We also critique calls. So if you do a live call with a seller, you're going to send that to your coach, and your coach is going to critique that. And that's how you get better and better and better. That's a powerful one.
Uh-huh. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing that. So,
Yeah.
but you structure your deals multiple ways, right? It's not the one kind of set of structure that kind of fits into
They're
all,
all
or it's
different.
better,
Yeah,
right?
they're so
So,
different.
so you wanted to share with us, how that's different from one another, all these different deal
Yeah,
structures.
so I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds, but like the one I told you about with the divorced couple, that was an easy one because that was just the structure was just taking over the underlying debt. There was no extra equity. There was a little bit of arrears, but that's it. Some deals, like Rick just did one recently that had underlying debt of like 300,000, I'll use round numbers, but then had equity of 3 or 400,000. So he did a combination of strategy and structure. He did a little subject to existing loan because it was there, like we talked about earlier, but then he did an owner financing component on top of that to get the sell of their equity. That's a totally different structure. And of course, the numbers for every deal will change. So there's all different ways to structure those depending if there's debt, no debt, behind, not behind, free and clear. Just everything's different.
And you mentioned earlier that you work with your students too, like, cumulatively you can take the deals down. So if
Yeah.
somebody wants to work with you, but can they work with you without being a student, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. So they're either in our community revenue sharing, or we have a company that does deals with people outside our community. Now, they're not going to profit all 3 paydays. They're going to get a referral fee and they're going to learn a little bit on the side, right? But if
Mhm.
they don't want to be in the community, they don't want to be in a long-term coaching, and they know that they're probably going to run across some of these deals because everybody does if they're just aware of it, then they can
Uh-huh.
operate through that. We have a company called Crossroads that does those particular deals with students outside the community or inside that just don't want to do it. They're either afraid of it or they don't have time, or they're just scared to do it themselves. We do those.
Interesting. So what are some of the things that people often overlook in these deal structures or when they're doing these deals?
Again, there's so many like per deal, but I'll give you some basics. The underlying debt, if there is some, has to be understood. Like, is the interest rate variable? If it's going to go up every year, you need to know that if you're putting a tenant buyer in the house. Is it fixed? Does it have a balloon? Is it private or is it conventional loan? Those, just looking at the debt alone is an exercise that people can overlook and just be anxious to get into a deal. On the buyer side, because we made this mistake, we've made all these mistakes, they're in my book. But on the buyer side, rushing to put a buyer in there that's not truly a buyer that needs time, but is rather a tenant that's had a lifelong history of bad credit, that's a new investor rushing to put someone in a house so they can see the profit every month, not realizing that down the road that's going to be a headache because it wasn't a qualified buyer. It was a tenant that wish someday they could buy, and that could be causing a headache. There's a lot of those. I have a whole chapter in my book that says what can go wrong, because I want people to know, unlike a lot of people that want to give you all the fluffy stuff, I want people to know that stuff can happen, and here's how you deal with it.
So you wrote a book about it. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, we
What?
wrote a bunch, as you said at the beginning, but real estate on your terms is really the crux of what you and I are talking about now, real estate on your terms. And they don't have to buy it at Amazon. I'm going to give every one of your listeners it for free, and that means free shipping too. It's not one of those free deals that you got to put in shipping. It's free.
Mhm.
Remind me when we were done, I'll give you the link. So in that book, we go through some of these systems you and I are talking about in the mindset. We go through real case studies, and they get to see really A through Z in that book. Do you want me to give you that link?
Yeah, sure.
You just go to wickedsmartbooks.com and then /RE vibe. So I know it came from your audience, and we'll gladly ship those out of this office. No charge, nothing.
All right. Thank you for using REY, our code there. I
You bet.
appreciate it. Yeah, so let's talk about the market shifts because you went through so many ups and downs, 2008 crash and then the COVID and your own personal thing. So what are some of the things that people get wrong during these market shifts, whether it's up or down or flat, what you've
Um,
seen from your experience?
well, my experience coming out of '08, which sparked this whole company, was when you're buying conventionally, which so many people are, I was too prior to the crash. You are at the whim of the bank in the market. So right now, interest rates are high. If you have a variable rate, you're probably getting crushed with your investment. If you fall behind, the bank's probably going to call the loan. These are all things I had to live through after the 2008 crash. Because why? Because I signed personally on a bank loan. That's what people think they have to do. You don't have to do that. You don't have to expose yourself to that. So if you don't, and you're structuring deals with us or on your own, just creative deals, you structure long enough terms, 5, 10 years, so you don't care what the market does in between, number one. And number two, you never go on that loan personally. So you hold the cards, you hold the leverage when the market changes, nobody else. In creative real estate, it's not can you do a deal when the market changes, it's just what's the structure. That's it. You're just behaving differently. You're fishing in different ponds for different types of deals, but you're never going to stop doing real estate. It's not like the masses think and the media thinks that, oh, now might not be a good time. No, it's a phenomenal time right now. In fact, the month of July, when you and I are talking, we're having a record month in the community. And in the 3 paydays, I think we just surpassed $1 million. That's student deals and profits in 1 month. That's in a market where the media is saying, oh, I don't know, it might not be a good time to do that. That's if you don't know how to do creative real estate.
And these are all the single family homes that you're targeting, right? Mostly.
Primarily, good question, primarily, but I do that because I don't want the shiny object syndrome in the industry. Oh, I gotta go do that. Oh, I gotta go buy that. Oh, I gotta buy that. So we teach single, but can you buy any asset class with the three structures I told you? Yes. We bought our own office building this way, multifamilies, commercial buildings, doesn't matter. But I want to make sure they learn it first and then they can delve away.
Mhm. So, what would you say to someone watching or listening to us right now who feels stuck? Maybe they are overwhelmed,
Yeah.
unsure what strategy to choose, and maybe hesitant to start, like you were talking about earlier, the action. And that's the best thing I liked in your framework. It starts with action and it ends with action.
Yeah.
That's a really cool framework right there.
Thank you. I would say this. Find what I said earlier, someone that is where you want to be, and then just simply do this with them. Here's where I am. Like, do a gut check. Honestly, where are you today? Put an X, almost like a map, right? Treasure map. Here's where I am today. X. Like you go in a mall and it says you are here. Okay, so get clear with where you are here. Then speak with them. If it's me, someone on a team, doesn't matter. Some other industry or business. Then tell them where ideally you'd like to go. No holdbacks, no imposter syndrome. Just for now, make believe that there's nothing stopping you. Where would you like to go? And then you'll discuss all the obstacles, perceived or real, that are in the way, and let them tell you how to knock those down one by one. Not
Mhm.
your idea. Let them tell you how to knock those down one by one, and then put some time frames to it. And let's get after it. If you let yourself be accountable to whoever you're speaking with, you'll have a good experience. But if you've never taken action and you're not willing to be coachable and held accountable, you're going to be in the same spot you were. So here's a question for everybody. If you keep rowing in the same direction, are you going to be happy with where you end up in 3 years? Only you know that. The listener, only you know that.
I agree on that. It's just something like keep on doing the same thing over and over again. Is that
Mhm.
sanity or are you getting somewhere?
Yeah.
I really like that. So you have built a really, truly remarkable business. I wanted to ask you this. What this business has taught you about legacy wealth and what really matters?
So two different questions, right?
Mhm.
It's taught me that it's possible by opening your eyes to the possibilities, because I think we all hold ourselves back right here. It's right here. Because for
Right.
4 years I held myself back, right? Until I
Mhm.
said, "Oh, I can do this." Oh, it wasn't because of me. The whole market went, So it's here. Um, that's what it taught me. Now, what was the second part of the question? Sorry, I should have said it out loud so I knew.
The second part is what it has taught you about your wealth legacy and why it really matters.
Why it matters. Um, at my stage anyway, personally, I think the why is important for everybody. At my personal stage is to create experiences. Let me back up. It's to earn enough income and create enough wealth to do the things that income and wealth can't buy, and that's creating experiences for me. So my family, my kids, my grandkids, that's why it matters to me, and that's why we go out and help other people attack their whys to do the exact same thing.
And I agree with you. I think why is the most important thing. If you do not have your why correctly defined, it's very hard to get up and take the ownership of anything, basically.
Especially when it gets hard. Yep.
Exactly. So the
Yep.
only way you're gonna strive is, or just get ahead is once you define your why I'm doing this, or what is my mission? Mission is just your being, actually. If you
Yep.
know you're being who you are, why you wanted to do this, everything else is gonna come
All in
smoothly.
place.
So what do you see in your crystal ball for yourself now?
Um, Tightening up the reins on how we do what we do in the company so that we can create more experiences personally.
Great. And how about the market? What do you see in your crystal ball? What the market is gonna do for the next couple of years?
Yeah, even the billionaires don't know, but I think it's going to keep changing like it does, and be excited and embrace it when you know how to do that inside of creative real estate, because nobody knows.
Awesome. So this was such a good conversation. So this brings us to a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions,
Sure.
and you answer it in one word or one sentence only. So no right or wrong questions or answers, basically, just whatever comes first.
Sure.
So what is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Workout.
One book that shifted your mindset, except Rich Dad Poor Dad. Everybody says that.
Shoe Dog.
Okay. What's the worst advice you have ever heard about real estate investing?
Worst advice? You need to go take out a loan if you want to buy property. Go take out a loan.
Coffee or beach walk? What is your real happy hour?
Beach now. I might have said that differently 10 years ago.
Okay, so what is your real, I'm going to rephrase this question. What is your wealth vibe?
Wealth, what? Sorry?
What is your wealth vibe?
Vibe. Wealth vibe. Can you ask it a different way? I want to make sure I answer it correctly. When you say wealth vibe, I want to make sure I'm.
Vibe means vibration. What are you trying to create?
Yeah, got it. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the same answer then. Enough wealth to create the things that money can't buy, and that's experiences. That's the vibe.
I think this was such a powerful episode and kind of eye-opener for me. I didn't know about this space, and I really like your energy and your strategy
Oh,
and
thank
how
you.
you structure this whole thing for yourself. Thank you for being with us today. But can you tell us how can our listeners connect with you to learn more about you? Or
Yeah,
your
so in addition,
coach?
yeah, in addition to the wickedsmartbooks.com/RE vibe, they can go. I have a free class. They can kind of go back on their own time and go through what you and I talked about. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class. It's free.
Thanks again, Chris. And to all of you tuning in, I hope this episode reminded you of something vital. You don't need to chase the market. You just need to master the terms. So stay inspired, stay intentional, and keep building your wealth vibe. I'm Vinky Loomba. Until next time, bye for now. Bye, Chris.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wealth Vibe Show. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget your free gift. Download the Busy Professional's Guide to Real Estate Investing at loombainvest.com. See you next time with another amazing guest and another powerful conversation.